1998 to 1999 saw AFI go through another change with the addition of Jade Puget on guitar, finally cementing the band that we know today. This is their final and current lineup. And in 1999, they released an album called Black Sails in the Sunset with this current lineup. And this really marks I would say the current era of AFI. This is where we get all the original members. This is where we start them pushing more into the horror punk sound that the kind of alt rock sound that they've continued throughout the years. And is really an album that most older AFI fans I found really kind of are drawn to. This is where a lot of people will kind of point to their peak. Personally, it's not my favorite album, but it's definitely a fantastic album that we're going to get into. So this is another release off of Dexter Holland's Nitro Records. And honestly, I actually start to hear some of his influence on here. And you get some moments that kind of sound like Offspring and that kind of alt-rock, alt-punk sound that the Offspring kind of brought to the table. It's especially heard in songs like the chorus of Extenuation or Malleus Maleficarum. You really get that style and that sense where you really hear that influence. However, AFI, while, the Offspring definitely kind of took the alt-punk scene in a more jovial direction, a more upbeat, kind of funny direction, an irony, AFI take it in a much, much darker place. And this album continues that trend that they started with Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes and pushes them even darker and more abstract territory. All these songs are a lot more poetic in general. There's a lot more metaphors. There's more gothic imagery that's going on, even from just the title of the album, the title of the tracks as well, are definitely rooted in more Poe style gothic poetry, I would say. There's more horror themes overall. And lyrically, there's been a huge increase. I mean, Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes definitely was a step up for the band as far as lyrically goes. And I think they really continue that with Black Sails in the Sunset. They definitely step things up. Like I said, there's a lot more metaphors. Everything's not as straightforward as it is on their previous albums. And also the song structure as well, and the songs overall, they've kind of been slowed down a bit. They're generally more methodical. Even the more hardcore songs on here are definitely slower paced. However, there are still some kind of bouncy songs, I would say, like No Poetic Device, which probably is one of the more catchier choruses that they've ever written, and the song Last Kiss as well, which kind of, even though they definitely are hardcore songs, they are aggressive, they're more fast-paced than the rest of this album. Now, this is also where they kind of really come into their own. I mean, again, this is the first where we get the current lineup. I really feel like this is, they kind of just clicked, and you really hear it in this album. I mean, some bands, when they go through a lineup change, they kind of take a couple albums to really feel themselves out and to kind of cement everything, but you get it right from this album with Black Sails in the Sunset. And the bands that have been there, I mean, they've definitely improved themselves in general, especially Davey Havok. I mean, I think he really applied himself on this album and has expanded his range overall. You even get a ballady track called God Called In Sick Today, which has kind of become like a staple at all their shows, and it is a really, really great song. His transitions between the clean vocals and the screaming and the growling overall are not that great. They're still a little bit awkward, but it works for this type of music. It doesn't feel like it's out of place here. It doesn't feel jarring as it may in other genres. They don't try to, while I say God Called In Sick Today is a ballady track, it's not like they tried to push into arena rock territory or pop punk or anything like that on this album. It's still that kind of aggressive hardcore, and it feels unique. It feels fresh in the scene. Really no other band was doing what they were doing. I mean, you might, like I said, you'll hear elements of other bands, for instance, The Offspring, but there's no other band that is doing what AFI does on this album. And there's, they just did a lot here. And overall, I think this is a very strong album for them. I think they did a fantastic job on it. It really is carrying them into what we know. I mean, they haven't pushed full forward into what I would call horror punk at this point, but it's there. The groundwork is there, and they're kind of transitioning towards that, and you really hear that. You hear moments of what they become and what we know them now as today. Thank you for watching the AFI review series, part 5. Next time, we're going to be taking a look at the All Hallows EP.